Hi, this is James from the Hornbill Professional Services team, and today we're going to do a short tutorial of how to configure third-party autoresponder rules. So there's a few steps that we're going to do in this tutorial. We're going to create a third party, we're going to define what our rules are going to be, we're going to create them, and then we're just going to test them by accepting, updating, and closing calls. So the first thing that we need to do here is just create a third party. So as you can see, I'm using 7.6 and this is ITSM 3.4 I believe. This will apply to every single ITSM version and platform version. So I'm going to create a new third party. You can see I've already got one called James Computers, so I'm just going to create a new one just so we can do it all from scratch. And I'm just going to call this, give it an ID or something, James third party. That'll do. I'm not going to go into the specifics of the supplier record. I believe I've done that on a separate tutorial. Just going to fill out all this mandatory information. Let's say I'm going to send an email when it gets sent. It doesn't matter which template at this stage. So I'm just going to add that record, and I'm also going to just create a third-party SLA because otherwise we won't be able to assign a call to it. And also just give a expiration date. Happy days. Okay, so what I'm going to do on here is I'm not going to place the request on hold. You'll see why in a second. So on assignment, obviously it completely depends on your underpinning SLAs and underpinning contracts, purely because of how you want the actual hours and response and fixed times to be calculated. So you can either place a call on hold as soon as you assign a call to it, or you can keep it simply as unaccepted. So I'm going to keep it as unaccepted when I do assign a call to our third party contract for this particular exercise. Add record. There we go, so we've got our contract there. So the next thing I'm going to do is just configure our autoresponder rule. So remember what autoresponder does. Autoresponder effectively uses the emails that's coming back from our third parties in this instance, and depending on certain rules such as certain information in the summary or in the description, or maybe depending on who it's coming from, it will do an action on the call itself. So we can put the information from the email straight into the call. It can accept it for you, it can put an update in there, or it can actually resolve the call. So this can be very handy in terms of you don't need that admin task of going through your emails and updating the calls. It can automatically be updated, and that's very handy to save time. So the one thing I have missed out actually on this third party is if I go to the properties, you've got an access to service desk tab. Now the first thing you want to do is actually just tick these boxes to say yes, it can accept, it can update calls, and it can resolve calls via email. The reason for this is purely because, similar to the actual self-service rights that you've seen on customer records, it needs rights to be able to update and accept and resolve calls, and if it doesn't have these, then it will just bomb out and you may lose your email. So I'm just going to save changes there. One thing that you do wish to take a note of, if we go into the form designer using the paintbrush there and just click on this box here, if we just scroll down to the flags, I'm just going to press on the three buttons there, you can see these bit values. Now these are important for later on in the process, so do take a note that the accept calls via email is bit 0, update is bit 10. So I'm just doing that just now, is accept equals 0, update is 10, and resolve is 1. So you'll see why a little bit later on, but these are quite important. So let's go across to our rules. you'll notice that I've already got one or a couple set up, but I'll set up new ones. So in fact, let me just delete them. So we'll set it up from scratch. So the first thing when you configure an autoresponder rules is you need to make sure that the inbound routing rules is correct. So as soon as an email comes in, you can see that it's going to follow this rule first. So it's going to check the subject. By default, out the box, it's configured like this with a question mark. Therefore, any subject that contains a question mark and any information afterwards, that's what the percentage sign is, it's a wildcard, would then forward across a message to the autoresponder. If it doesn't match with this, it will just simply treat it as a normal email and go into our shared mailbox. So for this exercise, I'm going to keep it as simply a wildcard, so any subject, I want everything to go to the autoresponder request. So let's go into autoresponder. So now we want to create rules. So remember our 3 rules that we're going to create here. We're going to accept the call, we're going to update the call, and we're going to resolve the call. So let's create a new one. I'm going to do a completely blank rule. So we're going to do a third party accept, because I think that'll be the first action. As soon as you send an email out to your third party, they're going to reply saying, yep, we've received that, our timers have started, that's with us. So let's configure our condition. So this is very important in terms of you want it to match directly with what the action is. So what I suggest you use is subject like maybe accept. So that means that when your third parties, of course you need to agree this with your third parties as well, when they are accepting one of your calls, they'll be replying back with accept as the first word, and then obviously any information afterwards. So that just makes sure that it actually matches with the rule. So with these bits of information down here, they're called related settings, but they're not actually called during this script. It's not very important, to be honest with you. I mean, you can use the assign group in the resolve rule, which we'll go through later, but I'm just going to fill these in just with the standard information as if it was just a simple update. So it should be update request rejected. So now on the right hand side here we've got the service control table. So this is the table that we want the rights to match with, just to check that the company emailing back has the correct rights. So the table is supplier, there it is. The key column will be the company ID. Control flag is web flag. Now this is the control bits. So remember, this is accept, so the bit will be bit 0. We want it to match with the email address and from address. So this just makes sure that the right third party is picked up and the right call is updated. So I'm just going to click OK at that point and apply. If we just go back into it just to make sure it's kept our settings, which it has. And now I'm going to click on the OK action tab. So in here, if I go to the drop down box, we have loads of rules, but we're only going to use these ones here. So we've got third party accept call, third party resolve call, and third party update call. Of course, if it was a task, then you can use simply this rule here. So I'm going to check the AR third party accept call, and now it's asked us to complete these expressions. So these expressions are very important in terms of what it needs to match with in the email itself. So it's using these parameters in VPME, but you can simply use these ones that I'm using here, so what I'm typing in. So token is searching for a word. So what that means, token subject 01 is I want to search for the call ref in the subject, line 0 because it goes from 0, and word number 1, which is in fact the second word because it starts from 0 again. So in the second word of the subject, when the third party is emailing back, it needs to contain the call reference number. The reply email will be from address. Reply mailbox is simply mailbox. Reply template OK is reply template OK. Reply template fail is reply template fail. Message subject is subject. Message body is body. Now supplier ID. So you can get this again from the subject. So this is the way I configure it. Again, if you find a way that your supplier ID actually matches the email address, perhaps you can just use from address as well. So 02. So it's just another example. I'm going to enter effectively. So remember, in our first tab here, we've configured that the first word of the subject needs to be accept. The second word needs to be the actual call reference number, and the third word needs to be now the supplier ID. So after I've done that, I'm going to go into the fail action and simply just use one of the fail actions that we've already got here. So there should be so I'm just going to use the AR request fail, which will simply just send an email back saying sorry, we couldn't update your call. So reply email from address, mailbox is mailbox, reply template fail, and error message you can just do specify an error. There we go. So I'm just going to click on OK and apply. So I'm just going to move this up to the top. Don't worry that it's blanked out the actual rule here, it will come back, trust me. If we just re-enter the SupportWorks server configuration, you'll see it's definitely there. And it's important that your rules are at the top here. If you don't use these other autoresponder rules, purely because just in case it matches with them, it's going to check top to bottom with the rules. So if it doesn't match these, if it hasn't got accept in the subject, then it's going to try and match with the log new call. If it doesn't match with that, it's going to keep going down and down and down. Then if it doesn't match with any of them, then it's just going to fail, which is not good. So now we've got our accept in, I'm just going to create a new one of them and copy the accept rule and use it for the update. So same rules apply. I'm just going to change these for update. Remember, change our control bit, so update is 10. There we go. And all the rest of the information, if I just go back into it. Now, I'm going to choose the third-party update call. Now you have a few extra columns here perhaps, but you can use SC underscore first name, SC underscore surname. I doubt there's any more information in the fail, which is not, so that's good. Okay, that's saved. So all the rest of the information here is still the same. Remember, it's checking the call reference number from the second word, it's checking the supplier ID from the third word, so that's all good. Again, move that up, apply. Just going to go back into it and create our last script. Let's copy the accept one again. Resolve. Control bit for this one is 1. Okay. Change the name. Go back into it. Change the rule that it's going to match with. Resolve. And here you're specifying the group that you want to assign back to. So either you can use the default assign group here, or specify the group in speech marks there. So again, move that one up. So that's that configured. So all we need to do now is effectively send an email back into the system and quoting the reference number obviously, and then see how it reacts. So I'm just going to pause the video just while the email setup is being complete. So we'll be back in a second. So as you can see, I've got an email message up here. So how are we going to configure the subject? So let's expect that an email has been sent across to a third party. We're the third party and we're emailing back. So now what we want to do is actually accept the call. So I'm going to say accept. Then we need to give it a reference number. So if I just simply go back to our SupportWorks system and assign one of these calls across to the contract. So dragging it across to the contract. Maybe assigning to third party. So you can see in contract it's been assigned across, so it's call reference 1. So I'm going to put 1, accept 1, and I want to put the ID of the supplier. So how do we find that out? So remember, you can get the ID directly from the database. So if I go into the server again and then into the SupportWorks server and core services and database query tool, and you can do a select star from supplier or suppliers. So you can see that my one is James third party with no spaces. So that's just a reminder that you can use just to get to the company ID. You should also be able to right click and go to the properties and see James third party there. So I'm going to enter that in, James third party, no spaces, and then you can enter some text. Okay, so now if we send that, good. So I'm going to use one of the helpful tips in bringing in the email. So I'm going to go into our command prompt. I've done a tutorial all over this, so I'm not going to explain it too much, but it just allows me to push email through. SupportWorks server, bin SW internet MC, selecting the mailbox, which is just my standard help desk one, inbound, go. There we go. So it's read my email here and it's just going through. So I have to wait just a minute or two just for it to process. In fact, you can already see that it's got a new update there. Let's go into it. Aha! There we go. So you can see that it has updated the call to say it's from the autoresponder on behalf of James third party, saying I confirm that James third party has accepted this call. The only problem is it's still showing an unaccepted status. As part of the script, it should have effectively set this to pending. So we'll check the reasons why that has not done that. Although you can actually manually accept it on behalf of them. There we go. So let's do now the same for the update. So bear with me while we just get up a email screen here. There we go. So remember, same rules apply, so I'm going to say update 1 James third party. There we go, something simple, some kind of update there, and a typical update from your third party. So I'm just going to send that, and again use our tool there to process the email. Just let it do its thing. So again, you can see the new update has popped up there, so we can go into the call. There we go. I'll confirm that we're waiting parts currently. So it's updated as we wish, so it's very, very, very handy. It's stuck in pending, obviously, so you wouldn't want it to change status necessarily, so that's okay. So now we're going to test the resolve. Okay. So James Downs at subject. So remember what we said it was. So we said resolve 1 James third party. I can confirm we have contacted end user and supplied the relevant parts. Call can be closed. Again, it's completely up to you how you work this system. Obviously, your third parties may not have a say in terms of fixing the call itself. Yeah, it's just completely up to yourselves how you want to manage that. It's just an additional tool if you do wish to use the resolve rule. So let's send that. Again, it helps if you use the two-stage process in terms of closure. So if you set it to resolved, you can then go back to the customer and say, can you confirm closure? You can set it then from resolved into closed. So let's process that again. Okay, so what's happened there? It's disappeared. But as we know, we configure the resolve rule for it to assign the call back to the support team. So let's go back to the general support. I can see here, call reference number 1, which is the one we used. It has been updated. So it says here the fixed time has been marked. There we go. There's no reason why the message body hasn't come through here, so we'll have to check that out. But effectively it has assigned the call back to support. It's resolved the case for us. And then therefore we can go back to the user and say, well, we've had this, we can confirm that they've got back to us and the call can be resolved. What you may wish to do is you may wish to ask your third party to do an update with the actual fixed details before they close it. It seems that this particular script out the box, it doesn't update the call to say with their particular email details if they are resolving it. So if you get them to send you an email first as an update with a fix, then say you can close this call, and it effectively then can close the call, but it obviously won't contain the information of the message body, which is a shame, but that seems to be how it is configured out of the box. So that's it. So you can see how you can configure it to automate updates. It can be very handy in terms of acceptance of the call and also resolving. So if you have any questions around this process, let me know. I'm aware there may well be a couple of little bugs around that which we'll sort out. Otherwise, I'll keep you updated on that.